Here we are. It's 900 square feet. Emily Ehman's in Chicago. I'm in Swampscott, Massachusetts. And soon to join us, Kirsten Bernthal Booth in Omaha, Nebraska, whose team is just on a fire.
Yeah.
Um, so, Emily, here's the thing that is just driving me crazy is the reverse sweeps. And
Yeah.
it used to be like, it was such a big deal until like this season. And now if there's a day without one. And so coincidentally, so I'm wearing my Canisius volleyball shirt because my man Tom Hanna sent it to me, and it's one of my proud ones. So the Canisius Golden Griffins from Buffalo, New York, for those of you who don't know. But
Golden Griffins. I
yes,
like that.
but speaking of reverse sweeps, they had a reverse sweep to end the regular season,
Ooh.
got them into fourth place in the MAC tournament, which gives the Golden Griffins a first round bye, which
Nice.
is a wonderful thing for my guy. And
I mean, what a way to end the regular season too. Obviously, they're going into postseason in their conference tournament, but to have that level of focus being down 0-2, it's insane to see from teams that you think their backs are against the wall, but they're not going to go down without a fight. It's fun.
yes, and speaking of reverse sweeps, did you stay up late enough to watch last night?
I saw
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened. I was driving back from Purdue, but I mean, to be honest, and I ended up going back and watching the fifth set, but I mean, USC, we're talking about USC reverse swept Oregon. And what was crazy to me was they're tied at 10-10, and Oregon literally handed USC the match. They have three service errors, a foot fault, and a net. USC didn't score in the last 5 points until that last point where Ali Batenhorst put it down. I mean, I couldn't believe just the lack of focus on Oregon's side to let that kind of match slip away when this is a team that is not locked in for a top 16 seed yet. I mean, this is a team, they're pretty comfortably in there, but if they start taking losses like this, it's not looking good.
No, and the part about her staying up late was I knew she was driving back because it was not a late night match. But I
Yeah.
mean, you still would have had to get back to Chicago from Purdue and then watch. Speaking of Purdue, the match you had, Ava Hudson looked so good yesterday, didn't she?
Oh, good. I mean, Hudson's incredible. She had 18 kills, hit way over 300 in a three-setter. It's funny because in the beginning of the match, they were incredibly balanced. Taylor Anderson, Purdue setter, was setting an incredible match. Colvin had like 4 kills in the first set. And then all of a sudden, Eva Hudson just gets this look in her eye in these intense matches. And she's like, I want this over now. And, she missed a handful of shots like inches to the sideline or to the end line, and she's kicking herself. And we're like, girl, you're hitting basically like 500 right now. Like, you're good. But just the way that she's able to take over a match, it is something else. She's so much fun to watch.
Well, they played Illinois, and one player who just probably just doesn't get enough credit because of the load she carries and how many swings she has to take and everything is Raina Terry for
Yeah.
Illinois. What a fabulous career the kid has had, and they're going to make the tournament. I mean, even
Yeah.
their record is strange, and they don't have. I don't even know how many. I mean, they're 1-8 against the top 25.
Yeah.
But they're
It's
29 RPI. So Illinois is going to make it, and I hope people get a chance to see her. If people outside the
yeah.
Big Ten ever haven't not have paid attention to Illinois.
I mean, she's so much fun. And Connor Onion, my play-by-play, and I were talking about it before the match, but Illinois just kind of sneaky became this team that you had to worry about. They were taking care of business against the teams that they should take care of, and have kind of just been in those big matches. Haven't necessarily had the biggest wins. Their best one being against USC, which was about 10 days ago now or so.
Yeah, but
And
just
Illinois has just sneaky been getting better. And Terry is so much fun to watch. She has one of the toughest serves in the conference. She hits harder to me than anyone that I've seen. I mean, I would be absolutely terrified to go up against her.
I mean, they're 1-9 in the top 50.
Yeah.
They're against top 50 teams, but 17-9 with an RPI at 29.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this later, but I went back and looked through it, and it's possible. And speaking of which, Kirsten Bernthal Booth is joining us. I'm going to get her in here, but it's possible. I mean, things could unfold that the Big East becomes the only team outside the Power Four, the only league to get more than one team. I mean, it could definitely happen. And I don't know, Kirsten, I don't know if you heard that what I just said, but it's possible that things could unfold over the next couple of weeks, depending on a lack of upsets in conference tournaments, that the Big East could be the only non-Power Four conference to get in two teams. It's
Really?
it's not
Wow.
impossible. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how are you? And
I'm good.
again, I'm doing it to you again because
I know. I'm like, are you wanting more Creighton attire, Lee? I mean,
no,
seriously.
because
That's what I said. I got my jacket.
Atta girl, Emily.
I love it. Thank you. You're the
So,
best.
so Kirsten, my guy Tom Hanna, who you know is one of the great guys, sent me this, and they go into MAC tournament play this week. It would be an incredible long shot for the Golden Griffins to still be playing next week, whereas I fully expect Creighton to be playing for a very long time, and I'll get my opportunity to wear the shirt again. Fair enough.
Well, I will look forward to it.
Your team's playing really well, huh?
Yeah, we're doing good thing. I think as a coach,
Yeah.
sometimes it's you focus on the points that you think need to go a little bit differently, but no, we're doing a lot of good things.
I mean, when you look at conference play as a whole, you've literally lost 2 sets, and both of those being to Marquette, who's been, receiving votes or ranked in the top 25 all season. What have you been impressed with most of your team's ability to continue to get better and just assert dominance against every single team you've played really all season long?
I think the maturity of this team shows up every night that they, I think I've told you guys in the past, we spend a lot of time explaining how RPI works, how the committee's making decisions. So, I mean, even going into yesterday, I was like, we need to win and we need to win in 3 and we need to win decisively. So they understand some of those things of, winning is part of it, but how we win is going to play a factor because I know people are like, well, they haven't played as hard of a schedule as the Big Ten, all those excuses of why we shouldn't be where we are, so we have to manage that, but then we've spent a lot of time this year in the gym saying, okay, this is preparing for this weekend, but we're going to do XYZ to prepare for NCAA tournament. So we're trying to, it's really hard for me as a coach to do that because I am so in the weeds. We're going to lose on Friday. That's kind of my panic mentality a lot of times as a coach. So I've really had to push myself out of my comfort zone to say, okay, we need to prep for beyond what we're seeing in the short term and really be ready for the long term.
What does that look like in your gym when you're kind of prepping ahead?
So things a lot. I mean, I think one example is a lot of the almost all the Big East teams are running an uber fast tempo. They're just going to beat you with speed. So that's a different prep than actually, I think almost all the top 4 to 5, 6 teams in the country. They're going to run higher. They're going to try to beat you with their athleticism. Not that there's not tempo, but I mean, we're running some really fast tempo. So that's different blocking schemes, right? So if they're running super fast, maybe we'll release blocking more than we would, and we'd be more in a bunch block against some other teams. So like that's one example of what we're trying to make sure we're prepping for different tempos, more back row attacks, different Pitt's got that great topspin server, bigger blocks. So, all those different things.
I love that you guys are doing stuff like that because you don't hear that often from coaches that they're thinking far ahead, but that also instills in your players that we're going to make it that far and we're going to get the opportunity to face these teams. And I think just that confidence piece of expecting to get there probably does a lot for your players too.
I hope so. There's a balance for sure. We are, the flip side of that is we're well aware parity in volleyball is at its best. So, first round, the NCAA tournament, we're going to be facing a good team. And we know second round, if we get that far, we're going to be playing a great team. So, but I will tell you, I've talked a lot about this. Terry Pettit has mentored me from when I started at Creighton, and he still mentors me. And he is probably the one that's in my ear the most about prepping for the long term. So it has been a drum for a while. And so I'm trying to lean into that some.
No, that's good. A friend of mine sent me a text the other day. This is someone who, whose opinion I respect, and says Nebraska, Wisconsin, Pitt, only one of those 3 teams can win the national championship. And I immediately texted back and I said, have you watched Creighton? And like the old Johnny Carson line, au contraire, moose breath, possibly the best pin hitting combination in the country.
Yeah.
In Nora Sis and Ava Martin. I mean, right up there with anybody's. A setter who, the AVCA made Kendra Waite one of their top 14 remaining players, leaving Nora Sis off, who's had not a bad season. And then your libero, Belinovich, yep, is every time I've seen her, she's been as good a libero as anybody I've seen. That's a nice start. Getzinger has won a national championship already. So I'm one of the things is that we wanted Kirsten to come on is because we want to. Emily and I are on the same page with this. We want to pound the drum for you to make sure you get a top 4 seed. Committee, are you watching?
I mean, and I guess for you, I know you've talked about how you feel like this team is deserving. Why right now do you feel like this team is deserving of a top 4 seed? What's, I guess, kind of plead your case there?
Well, I think, I think I can argue both ways on this, Emily. I mean, I see the side of where the committee, it's hard, but, we have 2 losses to, Nebraska and Louisville, both in 5
Yeah.
early in the year. And I think other than that, our big wins are Kansas, Purdue, very good Missouri team, NC State, USC. So I think, I think on paper, we're the hardest non-conference schedule in the country. So we put ourselves out there to play incredible teams. And I think we showed that. I think if you look at our scores in the Big East against, we do have some teams that are 200 plus, but the majority of our teams are 100 plus teams. I'm sorry, it's 0 to 100 RPI. So we are still, I know we're not playing Big Ten teams, but we still are playing very good teams night in and night out for the most part. Again, on paper, I'm referring to, but I think you can look at those things. So honestly, I think the committee needs to watch us. I'm sure they have. It's out of our hands. And I think we'd love to be at home as long as possible, but we like going on the road. So it's not something that we feel like we can't handle a nasty environment. We kind of lean into that, and we're going to be ready for any opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, you're 9-2 in the against the top 50, 6-2 against the top 25 in the current RPIs, and you're 4 in right now in unofficial. So that's not bad. Well, I'm going to make sure that my Creighton shirt is nearby. I'll have it. We want you to be a top 4 seed. Heck, I want you to be a 2nd or a 3rd seed. I'm not proud. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and all that you do for volleyball. It's awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Bye,
Kirsten, we'll
guys.
talk soon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
She's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, she's great, and her team's great. Every time I watch them, I mean, they're just so good, and it's not her fault that the Big East has only got Marquette to carry the torch right now.
I mean, we keep saying it, but it's the same exact situation for Creighton right now that we saw in, 2022 for San Diego. This is a team that really tested themselves in the non-conference literally as hard as they could have. And they're just given a conference that isn't as good. But again, they're taking care of these teams. It's not like they're dropping sets. The only 2 sets they've dropped the entire regular season have been to Marquette, who again has either been ranked or receiving votes this entire year.
Oh, no, Marquette's going to maybe surprise somebody in the tournament. It won't surprise me at all. So, can I talk more about the reverse sweeps? So Saturday, Colgate pulled one off against Bucknell to win the Patriot League. Utah, which was on a tough road trip. They went to Houston and won, and then had to go to UCF, which has nothing to lose at this point in the Big 12. Utah had to do a reverse sweep at UCF, and thank goodness for the Utes, because I'm rooting hard for them. I want Beth Lanier's team to also get a good seed and play at home. NCAA did it to UNC Wilmington. Chicago State did it at St. Francis. Cornell did it to Yale, and Oakland to Wright State. And Wright State, I think, was unbeaten in the Horizon League before then. It's just like, I mean, we always say one match at a time, one play at a time, take nothing for granted. But this whole reverse sweep thing, it just blows my mind.
Well, and it's really fun too, thinking about so many of these mid-major conferences that are now headed into the conference tournament. And like you mentioned, most of them, if not almost all of them, are only getting 1 bid. So it tells you a lot about those teams that are getting reverse sweeps and their ability to not quit. And that translates to a conference tournament when everything is on the line. Essentially, your back is against the wall always, because if you lose that match, your season is over.
Yeah, and the season's over for quite a few teams already.
Yeah.
Because there are a handful of conferences whose brackets are set who start play this week, and there were only X number of teams that get into their conference tournament. Thank goodness they don't go like 1 through 10 and let in some of the bad teams. I mean, I'm sorry for their kids whose careers or seasons are over, but I'm happy for me because it's a lot fewer teams to write about every day. But there's probably 30 teams that are done already, and by the end of the weekend, I think there's 6 tournaments coming up this weekend, so we'll be down, way ahead of things by this time next week.
Yeah. I was looking at some MAC stuff because I did some work for them earlier this season, and their conference tournament starts this weekend. And one of those where they don't have every team in it. But I mean, I just can't believe the run that Central Michigan is having. I mean, they just completed their winningest season since 1985. So basically, in 40 years, they earned a 2 seed for the tournament, and they've only lost, I think, 2 or 3 conference matches all year. So
Yeah,
Bowling
they're
Green right now comes in at number 1, but I mean, I think
24-6 and 15-3, which is
crazy.
fantastic. Yeah.
Massive turnaround. And I'm just excited to watch these conference tournaments because again, you never know what's going to happen.
No, I'm with you. I love them. I love them. Do you know that if you put in CMU volleyball for a search, you get first Carnegie Mellon volleyball, then Colorado Mesa volleyball, and now Central Michigan on Google. Who knew?
Not me.
I'm looking up to see what their record was last year. They were 15-15, 9-9 in the league. That is a huge turnaround.
Huge
That's
turnaround.
really good. There's a couple other teams in that league. I happened to see Eastern Michigan open the season. They played at IU Indy. I was there, and
Yeah.
they're 13-19 at 7-11. But I swear, when I saw them that first day, I thought to myself, "Ooh, this could be like a 4 or 5 win team." So credit to them for putting up, and they were in the hunt there for a little while. That tournament. I love me some action. I think it's great.
It is so much fun. I mean, all those players are so good, and there's a few studs across the board. And I'm honestly, again, I love these mid-major tournaments because it is just, it's crazy once you get into the semifinals and finals. I mean, it is just a battle every night.
So our poll, which comes out today, the VolleyballMag Super 16 media poll, I was surprised, not by the fact that our first 10 teams were identical, because my ballot was, I'm sure your ballot was pretty close to it.
Yeah.
But we go Pittsburgh, Nebraska, Louisville, Creighton, Penn State, Wisconsin, Stanford, Arizona State, SMU, and Purdue. And then Kansas dropped from 12th to 11th. The Kansas, that was not because of anything. Kansas won twice in there. Kentucky moved up a couple of spots to 12. Texas stayed at 13. Oregon dropped 3 spots because of that loss last night, I would assume. Dayton stayed 15, and Utah jumped in. And then Georgia Tech, which was tied for 16th last week, also got votes with Florida, Missouri, Minnesota, and Baylor. And Minnesota was tied with Georgia Tech for 16th. That's a strange team to figure.
The craziest part of this poll is from 14 to 16, because truly there are 10 teams that absolutely could make a case for being a top 16 seed. And these last 2 weeks are going to be so important for those teams to get wins, how they're getting wins, to make sure that they're not taking any losses. I mean, it's going to be a huge battle for who we see in that potential 14, 15, 16 seed. I mean, maybe just 15, 16, because Oregon seems pretty in it. I mean, we have Kentucky pretty high too. I don't like the resume wise. I think you look on paper and
they've got a 10 RPI.
I know. That's like their wins are Florida and SMU.
Right.
Good win.
South Dakota State's won 3 in a row since the loss, and it's 25-1.
Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of these conferences are getting weighted differently. For example, the Big 12 right now has 5 teams in the RPI top 16. But when you look at them at the eye test, you might not think a TCU, a Baylor, a Utah is as good as a Georgia Tech or a Kentucky, but like they're up there.
Yeah. And I mean, the SEC, we've talked about this.
11 in the top 50.
LSU beat the living hell out of Arkansas yesterday. LSU put together the first great match of the season for LSU, and Arkansas fell completely apart. But Arkansas is still, of that group you're talking about, is 49.
Yeah.
So it's 3, 6, 9. I still think they'll get 9 in. Maybe 10.
I mean, it was the exact same thing last season. They had a bunch right in the 40 range, and it was like, okay, which teams have maybe one good win and which teams have had some bad losses? And you have South Carolina 43, 45 Auburn, and 49 Arkansas. And I mean, realistically, maybe 2 of those get in. I don't know.
Yeah. One of those leagues that should get more than one is the West Coast Conference, Loyola Marymount and San Diego.
Yeah.
But they both have to finish strong. Loyola Marymount's in, I'm sure, but San Diego, at 41, I started to look at all the conferences and go, ooh, this could be a really top heavy Power 4 tournament.
Yeah. I mean, we got some big matches coming up this week too that are going to have potentially a huge impact.
We get to that in 1 second.
Got your shout outs?
Yeah. So, um, hold on one second here. Yeah. A former coach and a really good guy, Matt McShane, died. John Kessel happened to post it on uh, volleyball coaches and trainers, which if any of you out there are coaches or want to know more about the game, it's a really good group to join on Facebook. But I got to know Matt when he was an assistant and then took over at Cal, but he was also the head coach at Air Force and was a really good guy. And sorry to hear that. What'd you have last week besides did you have Indiana earlier?
No, I had Nebraska, Minnesota, which I ended up going for, and then the Purdue.
Congratulations, you saw a 4-set match.
Lee, my matches over the last few weeks, to be honest, I think the first month of the season, every match I had felt like an upset, and every match felt like it was going to 5 sets. I haven't had a 5-setter, I think, in like a month. I've had just sweeps left and right. I'm sick of it. I'm completely sick of it. But I have some big ones this week that I'm excited about. Minnesota, Wisconsin on Wednesday. Minnesota beat Wisconsin in 5 earlier this season. And then Nebraska, Wisconsin on Saturday, which I am praying to God is better than the first time they met up.
So speaking of from the Emily Ehman list of matches to watch this week, she mentioned Minnesota, Wisconsin. It's like a last chance for Minnesota to, not a last chance, but getting close to stay in that top 16 hunt. And then I think Purdue at Penn State on Thursday could be worth the price of admission.
Yeah. I mean, Purdue is heating up right now. They look really, really good. This is a team that feels a lot more mature than what we've seen in the past. They're peaking at the right time. And we've seen Penn State, waver. They lost a set to Northwestern, lost a set to Iowa. They've been in some really close matches with teams they shouldn't be. So we'll see if Penn State, goes into this crazy environment and what they can do.
Not put on this list, but I will capsulize all of them Tuesday on the website. All the conference tournaments that begin this week with snippets about what's at stake and who's who and what's what. But the Big South, the MAC, the America East, like you said, the other MAC, MAAC, all of the alphabet soup. Friday, Georgia Tech at Florida State, Arkansas at Tennessee. Big match for both of those clubs.
Yeah.
Texas at Oklahoma. As you noted, the rematch. Texas looks really good again.
They look a lot better.
Yeah, Missouri at Ole Miss. Big match for Missouri should it lose. Was Ole Miss one of those teams that has?
Yeah, currently Mizzou is at 22, Ole Miss is at 35. So, both teams comfortably in right now, but it's crazy.
I love.
I know.
Ole Miss, and one of my favorite people on earth, Savannah Reddy, is a first-year assistant at Ole Miss, and they're doing great. But they're not the 35th best team in the country, and if they are, we have a problem. God, I don't want to. Next thing you're going to say to me, WAN. No. Every time I say stuff like this, I hear about it. Saturday, USC at Purdue, very important. I mean, USC's running out of time for a really good seeding situation, if at all.
Purdue's got a tough stretch to the end. They have USC, they have Penn State, and then they go out west during Thanksgiving weekend to play Oregon and Washington. So they've got a really tough stretch coming up.
Well, you have UCLA at Illinois. It's an important match for Illinois. I don't know that UCLA can get back into the hunt.
Yeah, they're 67 right now. I don't think so. But that honestly for Illinois, they're around 30, but it feels like a must win for them just to solidify that they can be in the tournament. Currently they're at 29, so they're comfortably in probably either way.
Wisconsin at Nebraska is that Big Ten network, and what football game leads into it?
Wisconsin, Nebraska.
For real.
Yeah.
Wow, what smart programming that is.
Normally this matchup is the last week of the regular season around Thanksgiving, but they actually moved it to this Saturday so it could have that big football lead in. And to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if our volleyball match did better viewership than the football one because both those programs.
Well, even in the ABCA, it's worth going to if you haven't seen it. They have a page now listing all the attendance records.
Yeah.
Attendance records continue to be broken or just chock full, and the TV ratings continue still to be great. Sunday, Stanford at Carolina.
I put this one on there because it's at noon Eastern, which is really 9 Pacific. So you never know what can happen when Stanford's going into that gym. And UNC's played really well all year.
Yeah. Georgia Tech at Miami, got to go to the bandbox. And setters, be careful. Don't set the ball too high or they'll go into the rafters. South Carolina at Tennessee, Arkansas at Kentucky, and then Auburn at Oklahoma. There's actually a couple of really fun players to watch from both of those teams.
Yeah.
Auburn, Oklahoma. I mean, Alexis Shelton, what a season she's having for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
No major Big 12 matchups you noted there.
No big RPI ones, just kind of, it seems like it might be an all chalk kind of week, unless some upsets happen. You never know. And that could really shake things up, for that 14 to 16 range in hosting, because there are multiple Big 12 teams. There's 5 in the top 16 right now. And I'm assuming they're probably not going to get 5 that are hosting. So, the teams that are there right now got to take care of business.
Yep. Well, I had me an interesting week last week. I had a road trip
Yeah.
out west, and I got to spend, I saw 3 fabulously great practices. One was Love Salt Lake, which includes Jordan Poulter and Haley Washington,
Yeah.
and Ronnie Jones-Perry and Maddie Haynes. And
I mean, how fun of a team is that? Like the personalities.
Mary Lake, who played at BYU, she's back. The Japanese libero, who's among the best.
Nami Kojima. I love her.
Danny Drews. It was so good.
Yeah.
And then I got to see Utah practice, and great vibe from that team, and some nice talent, and maybe out punching its weight this year. You watch them practice, and I thought they're good, but if they can sneak out a top 16 seed, good for them. Because but the Utes had a good gym. And then I was in Texas, and I got to see James Madison play at Texas State, which is one of my favorite teams, with some favorite people, including Carly Graham, the former Rice setter, who's going to go to Las Vegas this year. She was in Orlando and Pro Volleyball Federation, but she's an assistant. And great to see that club. And then I got to see Texas practice, and there's nothing wrong with Texas. You see, somebody's going to have to inherit them if they get through those first 2 rounds. And they can catch lightning in a bottle. I don't know that it's a national championship caliber team, but we didn't think that this time last year, did we?
No. And you look down the list right now, like Wisconsin could easily come in as like a potential 6-7 seed, which sounds crazy for what that team's doing. Texas could be like 12-13 range, which you do not want to be playing them the second weekend.
Let's just say it goes chalk, and Nebraska, Pitt, Louisville, and Creighton are the top 4 seeds. That means coming to your gym.
Oh, you're knocking out Penn State from that?
Oh, I'm just saying right now that's the RPI.
Oh.
But let's just say that's what way it goes. Then you would have Stanford, Penn State, SMU, Wisconsin, Arizona State, Kentucky, Kansas, Texas. One of those or 2 of those teams are coming to your gym if everybody gets through. And I would say this is deep at the top dozen as we've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And I've talked to a few coaches that the way that things are shaking out, that they're like, you know what, we potentially would be okay not hosting because we might get completely screwed based on the seeding. And I was like, you know what, that's not a horrible thing to think about.
Yeah, no, you may not want to be number 5 or number 6, who knows? She is the inimitable Emily Ehman, and this has been 900 square feet. And I want to thank you for watching, putting up with us, all of the above. And you should have fun this week. It should be pretty cool.
If I don't get a good match on Wednesday or Saturday, I might quit. I might quit my job. I got 5 matches left of the regular season, and just give me something. Give me something.
You won't quit, and you need the money.
Both of those things are true.